All right, hey guys, what's going on? So in the video today, I'm very excited because in today's video, I'm going to be doing a full review of these John Lofgren combat boots in Timber Chrome Excel, sent to me courtesy of my buddy Mario, otherwise known as Boot Reaper on Instagram, friend and employee of DMAR Shoe Repair, who you should check out. They do a lot of amazing work over there. Amazing cobblers, they both are. And Mario was kind enough to send me these boots to review. I had a chance to take them in, wear them a little bit, gather my thoughts, do some research, do a lot of online research, and really sort of try to get to know the brand because it's not a brand that I've purchased from before or really honestly followed all that closely. And so this has been just a real treat to get to know this brand. The more I research them, the more I respect them, honestly. So just to give an overall overview of this brand, best I can tell is John Lofgren, they haven't been around super duper long. They're not like one of these heritage brands that's been around for hundreds of years. Yeah, John Lofgren, I believe, was founded not very long ago by one guy, John Lofgren himself, who was inspired to start his own heritage brand after watching a movie that I'd never even heard of, called Quadrophenia, which it's a movie that encapsulates the style of the 1950s, 1940s era. And so Quadrophenia tells a universal story. Mod is a shorter word for young, beautiful, and stupid. We've all been there. Yes, and unfortunately for me, I'm still one of those three things. I'll let you draw the conclusion on that one. These boots are built in what's called Timber Chrome Excel. Everybody knows about Horween Chrome Excel at this point. And in fact, the more I look at this, the more I'm starting to hazard a guess. And I'm not 100% sure because Horween has so many different leathers, but I'm pretty sure that this Timber Chrome Excel is just brown Chrome Excel. And I'll compare these to, hopefully the camera can translate this well. So these are my Vibergs on the 2030 last in brown Chrome Excel, and you can see some similarities there. These are my Thorogood Roofers in brown Chrome Excel. And here are my Alden Innsbruck Indies in brown Chrome Excel. The Innsbruck Indies here definitely came out, this batch of brown Chrome Excel was definitely more of a reddish tone as compared to the Viberg Service Boots. They're a little bit more drab, a little bit more earthy, less red, more brown, but still red. And then, yeah, these Thorogoods are definitely more on the brown side. Less red, probably the least red of the four. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and just say that timber is the term that John Lofgren used to name brown Chrome Excel. I'm pretty sure this is just brown Chrome Excel. Each batch from Horween, even as the same color, is gonna come out just a little bit different. There's always gonna be inconsistencies from batch to batch, and this is gonna depend on, what combination of pigments they added to the leather, how long the particular hide was tanned for, the particular hide itself, because no two hides are the same, and yada, yada, yada. You get the point. There's going to be some inconsistencies between batches from batch to batch for really most any tannery. That's just the nature of the beast, no pun intended. Talking to Wyatt at Grantstone, I've had the privilege and opportunity to be able to pick his mind, and his philosophy with Grantstone is he's trying to make the best possible boot that he can, right? That's his philosophy. I wouldn't say that is hyperbole or a frivolous statement at all. I can tell you now, as starting to create my own leather products, I can tell you that yes, I'm very discerning when it comes to picking my design and all the materials involved. And anything that even encroaches on looking even remotely a little bit cheap, I will not put into my product because I want it to look timeless. I want it to be timeless. I want it to function as long as humanly possible. That's why I source all my leather from very well reputed tanneries that I know and have researched and have personal experience with buying myself, as well as all my hardware I source from the Buckle Guy because they're using the top quality components. There's nothing cheap about their hardware whatsoever. Their rivets, their O-rings, their D-rings, everything is like robust, very opulent, beautiful, functional, sturdy. You have no doubt in your mind when you're using this stuff that this is the best stuff you can get. That brings me to Lofgren. Lofgren is doing just that. They make their product in Japan, and every stitch, every component, every piece of leather, every piece of the sole. They're using the best possible stuff, and they're designing it and they're putting it together in the best possible way. Each brand has its own personality, right? And one thing that I've come to understand and appreciate about Lofgren is they really put their money where their mouth is. They source everything ethically. There's no gray area in terms of production or labor. There's no question whatsoever. They're doing everything ethically, just as the most discerning customer would demand. They really go out of their way to make sure that everything that they do is the best of the best. For that, you will pay a higher price tag. The price for some John Lofgren Natural Chrome Excel engineer boots is going to be just north of $1,000. So yeah, so I'll read a little bit about John Lofgren from their website. So they say, we make boots and shoes that exhibit the finest in Japanese craftsmanship while using materials selected from companies that are the best at what they do. From the sole to upper and everything in between, each part is ethically made. We source all of our materials from Japan, the USA, England, France, Germany, and Italy. No child or slave labor ever. Profit over people is not what we are about. We obsess over the smallest details. The build quality and comfort must be superlative. We at John Lofgren Bootmaker understand the value of master craftsmanship, and we care about how, where, and by who our footwear is made. We hope you do too. All right, and so a little bit on this model. The combat boot is John Lofgren's take on the classic M42 cap-toe military boot worn by American GIs in World War II. Yeah, and so very similar to the Viberg service boot, modeled after the officers' boots in World War II. Very similar, except obviously we're going to have a very different last type. Now, one thing I'll say is, so these Vibergs are a half size large for me. These are 8.5 Viberg on the 2030 last. However, I've been wearing them comfortably since 2014, and I never really realized that they were the wrong size, mostly because they fit so well. And the reason being is the low instep here. My foot is perfectly seated here. Listening to the recent Stitch Down podcast interview with Ron Ryder, he talked all about boot sizing, and he said that length is not very important. It's how well your foot is nested within the boot, and my foot is very well nested within here. Do I have a lot of space between my toe and the front of the boot? Yes, I do. Because of this collapsed toe box, my foot is just so well nested in there. I never had an issue. So these 8.5 2030s versus the John Lofgrens in size 9, you can see they're the same length. And so with that, and Jake talks about this as well on his blog, that there is some back and forth. Is John Lofgren a full size large or is it a half size large? And this is where I'm going to plug Grail real quick. Kyle Mordock at Grail, he's trying to solve the boot sizing problem. I think I input about 25 different sizing recommendations onto his site. My recommendation with this particular this John Lofgren combat boot, is to go a half size down. I think these run a half size large, not a full size large, because these are a size 9. I'm a size 9 Brannick, and I can wear these pretty comfortably. In fact, they fit. The length is identical to the Vibergs in an 8.5, and you could see that here, more or less. Even the Vibergs might be even a little longer, but I would say for the most part they're the same size. Where these feel very large on me is with this structured toe box. I'm able to walk around in these just fine. If the toe box had less volume, they'd be like close to a perfect fit. But if I were to reorder these, I would not reorder these a full size down. I would order these a half size down. Whereas the Vibergs, you want to go the full size down, because Vibergs is more like UK sizing. So this 8.5 is a half size large for me, and I'm a 9 Brannick, and this 9 is a half size large for me, and I'm a 9 Brannick. So 8.5 in the Lofgrens would be ideal for me, and size 8 in the Vibergs would be ideal for me. In general, a half down from Brannick for Lofgren, a full size down from Brannick for Viberg. My buddy Jake at Almost Vintage Style, what's so interesting is he's been into Lofgren far longer than any of us have, for the most part. He's really devoted a lot of time to researching Lofgren and researching different Japanese makers, heritage makers across the globe. He's extremely knowledgeable about this stuff, and in fact, when he first started talking to me about John Lofgren, I'd never even heard of them, and I had never even considered an engineer boot before. Now, what's really interesting is Jake credits John Lofgren with almost single-handedly bringing the engineer boot back onto the scene, into the heritage world. And I would have never known that, but I think that's true. Similar to how the Alden Indy is so iconic because of the movies and the lore that and the fandom that has continued to exist for many years based on that. That's why the indie to this day is so popular. It's because of the movies. John Lofgren more or less revived the engineer boot style, and a lot of my friends, like Jeff the denim dentist, he's got a couple pair of engineers now. My buddy Dave at the Vintage Future, otherwise known as Boots of Manish Leather on Instagram. My buddy Jimmy, Nerdin' with Boots on Instagram, otherwise known as Trinity Handmade. Jake really credits John Lofgren with the return of the engineer boot, and so many of my friends have engineers now as a result. And in fact, my recent stitched down patina Thunderdome pair from Renav Goods is an engineer boot, and I had a great time wearing those. And I have another pair from Renav Goods on the way in brown oiled Shinki horsebutt, because I just think, yeah, engineers, they were overlooked. You know, they were overlooked for a long time, and I think that's a very attractive boot. And I had no clue that John Lofgren is basically single-handedly responsible for bringing that back. So I'm going to read a little bit off of Jake's interview with John Lofgren, and Jake has posted some articles as well. I will leave links to those in the description below. So Jake says, the John Lofgren engineer boot is a modern classic, and it, along with the Mr. Freedom Road Champ, were largely responsible for kicking off the massive engineer boot revival that we are currently enjoying. In fact, I just discussed this with John in our recent interview. So much has been said about the effort that John Lofgren put into creating these boots that I could never do it justice. What I will say is that John has made sure to guarantee that absolutely everything put into these boots is ethically sourced. The leather, the buckles, even the Vibram soles are sourced ethically. Yes, that's true. The Vibram soles, apparently Vibram produces soles in both the USA and China and other parts of the world, but John Lofgren will only use the stuff sourced in the United States. John specifically points out that his Vibram soles are made in the USA and not in China. The production is also done ethically in Japan, and I personally love that someone who is not a one-man maker cares so much about ethically producing their goods, and it does make me feel better about purchasing. The John Lofgren Engineer, it is not as slim and the toe is not as low as a pair of roll clubs, but the toe is not bulbous and sprung like Buco's. To me, it is a great balance, and along with the Stormwelt, leads to a handsome and unique looking engineer boot. As of now, the general consensus seems to be size down a half from your Brannock size for these boots. I'm a 10.5 on a Brannock and went with a 10 in these. They do fit slightly loose, but with a thick sock, they fit well. All right, and so Standard and Strange currently has John Lofgren engineer boots in natural Chrome Excel for $1,075. Seems to be fully stocked. And they say, if you want the absolute best in engineer boots, this is it. John Lofgren debuted these in 2012, and every run has sold out as fast as he could produce them. Every great pair of footwear begins with a good last, and these start from a custom-made last designed by John to give a 1950s silhouette to the boot. No toe bump, with a nice taper to the shape. Wrapped around that last is natural Horween Chrome Excel tanned in the United States. The rest of the construction details are on par with that fantastic leather. Japanese steel shanks, British Goodyear welting, and brass-coated steel buckles made in Tokyo. Even the labels are made on shuttle looms. All of this goodness is pulled together and turned into boots as at one of the best footwear factories in Japan. If you want to really go in depth, check out what John at the Vintage Engineer Boots has to say about them. Their engineers are 12.5 inches in height. And yeah, Standard and Strange says go a half size smaller than your Brannock device. Yeah, so that's good. In 2012, Vintage Engineer Boots posted a written review on the John Lofgren engineer boots. He had been collecting vintage engineer boots for over 20 years. He says that white welt stitching was his clue that boots were well made. He also praises John Lofgren for adding the storm welts to the engineer model. Among the engineer boot enthusiasts, they are huge fans of the cat's paw heels. Apparently there's some debate between Cuban and Woodsman heel. Yeah, he says that these are Cuban heels. All right, so he recommends going a full size down for the engineers. And you know, that could also work, and especially if you have a low volume foot. What was cool was when Jake interviewed John Lofgren himself. Jake is a big stickler for details, and when it comes to Cuban versus Woodsman heel, apparently there was some debate as to whether or not the Lofgren engineers had a Cuban or a Woodsman heel. And so Jake asked John Lofgren that question. He said, most importantly, the heel that is on your engineers and donkey punchers Is it a Woodsman heel or a Cuban heel? Let's end this debate now. And John Lofgren said, it's a Woodsman heel, and don't let anyone tell you any different. And so finally, I wanted to address a little bit of controversy. So apparently back in 2020, I believe, John Lofgren posted on Instagram. It created a bit of backlash, a little bit of controversy, a little bit of outrage amongst the boot community. Our boot community really is a microcosm, and it's not very big. Amongst our group, we're going to have drama just like any other group of enthusiasts, whether we're talking about, Star Wars enthusiasts, Star Trek enthusiasts, World of Warcraft, Call of Duty. There's a lot of fandoms out there that are, they get into their debates just like anywhere else. I started blogging about boots and YouTubing about boots because I thought it was mostly like a safe topic to talk about. And it is. It is, for the most part, very safe. But just like anything, it can get political. And here are my thoughts on that. John Lofgren, yeah, they posted something. I can't remember exactly the post. I think they deleted it, but they basically said like, it was not even something they said. It was just hashtag not made in China. And after studying John Lofgren and getting to know the brand for a while, China is sort of reputed for having very poor labor practices, very unethical production practices. It's no secret. I mean, most of everything that you get in China, generally speaking, a lot of junk comes out of there and a lot of cheap labor comes out of there. And is that a good thing? No. But then there are some Chinese things that are very well made. As if you've been following my channel for a long time, I'm a huge fan of Grantstone boots and shoes. They're one of my favorite brands, and I've gotten to know the guys, the team there. They're such a great group of people. Love them. I will never say a bad thing about Grantstone. They're just wonderful people, a wonderful company, and they produce their footwear in a shoe factory in Xiamen, China. And I have like probably 30 pairs of their boots. I am a huge fan of the construction, the build, the last that they use, the materials that they use, and the workers at the factory are well paid. In fact, Xiamen is a luxury destination. For that reason, it's like can we fault somebody for having a negative opinion on made in China generally? No. But there's always exceptions to that rule, and I think that's where Grantstone comes into play. Grantstone, Quan the bootmaker is Chinese, doing phenomenal work. There's a lot of really good Chinese makers, but they're individuals, or they're small groups, and that's why you can judge trends and information in a general sense. But then when it comes to judging a particular company or a particular individual, you want to treat them as a particular individual, right? So that's why I support Grantstone the way that I do. And that's why I think, though, that when John Lofgren was saying, not made in China, made in Japan, not made in China, he was saying that, well, made in Japan has, as a nation, has higher standards. Anything that you buy from Japan is going to be more expensive. Their jackets, their boots. These boots are going to run you between $1,000 and $2,000 for John Lofgren's. They're not cheap. Whereas, my Grantstones, they run between $300 and $500. So a lot cheaper labor is in China. And John Lofgren also said something to the effect of not made in Indonesia. Now, I also have a ton of Indonesian boots. But generally speaking, I don't know much about the Indonesian bootmaking industry, but I do know that the few brands that I have purchased from in Indonesia have been absolutely phenomenal. But again, these are small batch makers. These aren't huge companies. So I can't speak to huge companies because I don't buy that stuff. That's a long-winded way of saying that, yeah, John Lofgren, they did a post in 2020. It caused a lot of outrage. And even like me, I released a video just giving my thoughts on the boots that Mario sent me. And I got some negative backlash there too. I had, to be perfectly honest, completely forgotten about the fiasco that took place in 2020. I think maybe that's the point that I'm trying to get at, is I think we need to be a little bit more forgiving when somebody steps over the line and makes a mistake. Did John Lofgren make a mistake with that post? I don't really think they did. I think it was taken the wrong way. I think it was interpreted the wrong way. I wouldn't call it a mistake though. Maybe he stepped kind of close to the line. I wouldn't say he crossed any lines. And I was quick to forget that. I'm not the type to hold a grudge. I think, by my recollection, John Lofgren apologized, and to me, that settled it. You know, when I was a kid growing up, if you had a scuffle with another kid, and then the teacher would say, "Now shake hands and make up," and you would apologize and shake hands and make up, and that was it. That was the end of it. You put it behind you, right? I think what I find sort of disappointing in today's world is with cancel culture and everything, we don't like to forget even a very simple little mistake. To that, I would say, to he who has never sinned, throw the first stone. I believe in redemption. I believe in, if you make an apology, then that should be it. Let's move on. Those are my thoughts. I don't think, should John Lofgren be canceled forever? No. They make phenomenal boots. They do it ethically. By the way, these are boots. We're not talking about life and death. We're not talking about war. These are boots. These are heritage leather goods. They're to be enjoyed. They're to be worn. They're to be used. They're to be appreciated. I don't think that this approach of, holding a grudge against a company, especially when you really look at them do phenomenal work and do everything right by the book, I don't think holding a grudge against a company like that is the right thing to do. I really don't. For that reason, I will say that I'm a fan of Lofgren. I will support them. I think that they're doing an amazing thing. After doing more research into them, I think they've really done a good job at reviving a portion of early 1900s heritage workwear that would have otherwise been laid dormant. To all you guys who have engineer boots right now, you might have John Lofgren to thank for that. And Jake. Jake's blog really brought engineer boots into the forefront. I think John Lofgren is doing something really special. If I had any gaps in my rotation right now, which, I'm going to end up with a pair of natural engineer boots, a pair of dark brown. I will consider getting the black engineer boots in the future here. Talked to my buddy Jimmy at Trinity Handmade. He was saying that I was sort of telling him, like, hey, listen, I see the John Lofgrens, I see the components used, the Chrome XL. I wouldn't feel good paying $1,000 for Chrome XL. That's just me, because I know I could get it from Grant Stone for far cheaper. But his point was, and he made a very good point, he said, yeah, you can get it cheaper, but if you want the perfect engineer silhouette, perfectly done, on that perfect engineer last, no other company is going to do an engineer like that other than John Lofgren or the Roll Club. And yeah, that's true. Like my Renav Goods engineers, they're phenomenal. They're a little bulbous at the toe. They're not quite as sleek as the John Lofgren engineers. I definitely can appreciate that. And so for that reason, yeah, I think if I ever do need a pair of black engineers, I'd go for the Lofgrens and black Chrome XL. I think those would be an outstanding choice. So anyways, what do you think about these boots? What do you think about John Lofgren, the brand? I am a fan. After looking into them a lot deeper, I think my appreciation of them has grown considerably. So anyways, please leave me your thoughts about these boots and the brand in the comments below. And anyways, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I will see y'all in my next video.